Party time. Let's go. Who's excited?
Woo!
What's up, Eli?
Look at all these awesome people, familiar faces. We missed you guys.
I know, right? Hey, Sonata. Nice to see you.
What's up?
Andrew
Very
Arnold,
cool.
Eric
Cool.
Auger, Michael,
Adam, Steve.
Marco. We had a party.
Very cool, guys. So some other folks will probably hop in. We put our heart and souls into this program, and this is the program I wish I always had, starting off in sales, getting all the scripts, all the frameworks, all the questions, everything. And I was a bit overwhelmed, and we put a lot into this, and I have a tendency to go long. So every time we do a session, Mr. Sanchez and I are mock doing the entire thing before at least once to make sure we keep it tight. So everything here is going to be super actionable, super relatable. And as you're listening to me speak, I want you to really begin thinking about how you can apply some of these terms into your life. And we're going to really unpack the process of persuasion, of influence. How do we create stronger associations through language inside of the mind and the hearts of the prospect? Now, that'll be associations to you, to their problems, to themselves, their ability to do it. How do we present these gaps? And as you've heard me say many times before, if you've been into any of my trainings with me and Mr. Sanchez here, you can have guesswork, hard work, or a framework. And so we've created some new frameworks. And this session is meant to be, for many of you, a bit of a review if you've been through some of my sales course. And what we're unpacking here is really the framework you're going to take people through from stranger to friend, to committed, to giving you referrals. How do we create that strong association and position you as the leader? Now, NLP, I think, is amazing. Once I saw, and you're going to hear me tell some stories, some personal stories here about Tony Robbins, some conversations where there was these distinctions that helped me get it. Because like many of you, when it came to sales, influence, all the NLP stuff, I was a bit overwhelmed. I got all these concepts and I got a bunch of tactics, but I didn't know exactly how they applied in certain situations. I got a lot of scripts, and while those were really powerful, sometimes they didn't quite relate. And it was because I was thinking tactically and strategically when I didn't really embody the principles. And so in this lesson, we're really going to dig into the concepts behind NLP, what they got right, what they got wrong, especially in the sales context, because in NLP, there's a therapeutic application. And a big part of it, and when you look at the Milton model, which we're going to unpack, when we're going to look at the meta model, and you're going to understand what those terms mean if you're not familiar already. We're going to unpack a lot of that, but put it into a sales context, because in therapy, a lot of it is just getting people to realize they don't really have a problem. In sales, people have a problem, and we want to expand that problem. And so we're taking these concepts into the framework that we're going to unpack here and really install some principles inside of your mind and introduce you to some of the concepts. And we're going to continue to drip out more content and frames and different patterns that you'll want to practice inside the Facebook group so that you're not overwhelmed, but you're going to really grasp onto these linguistic tools around reframing, around taking people deeper into emotional feelings and begin to create pictures inside of their mind. And so hopefully you're getting a picture in your mind of what that looks like for you to feel more empowered in your conversation. Because if we're connecting with somebody and we're trying to get them to do something, we can have these surface level conversations. But when you speak beneath the mask, when you dig in to what's driving this human being, and you begin to recognize patterns in what they're doing, what they're saying, what they're not saying, you can connect to that part of them at a whole different level. And they're going to see you in a whole different way. And they're going to see your opportunity and what you have to present in a totally different light as well. So we're going to get right into it with some different frameworks and really make sure that we're all on the same page as to what NLP is, nervous system, linguistic language programming. I'm going to show you how kind of my interpretation of how Tony Robbins adapted it very, very briefly, and then how I and Mr. Sanchez here have built upon that to make it more relatable for people of influence like ourselves. And so you're going to get a lot of concepts that are going to shift some things in you as to how you see yourself, how you see communication, how you see what's happening beneath the surface when you're connecting with a human being. And I know a couple of you had asked specifically here, I know Frank, you had asked about this. How do you create a stronger internal frame connected to who you are, how you show up? Because everything is going to come down to frames. So as we're reframing people, we're reframing the content and the context. You're going to get a deeper understanding of what that means, but the context determines the content. So your sales call, like if the context is the sales call, there's what's happening inside the sales call, that's the content. But the frame in which they see you, the frame in which you see what's happening is the context. And so we'll have some contextual and content reframes, and you're going to understand a lot of this at a whole deeper level as we go in. But this first session is really just to get us on the same page with how we apply this to sales. What are the frameworks that you're taking people through, and have a deeper understanding of the presuppositions of NLP, what's happening, how you learn, and to understand that learning at the highest level happens at an unconscious level. When I saw Tony Robbins, I was obsessed, and I literally have taken no less than 1,000 hours of my time to transcribe by hand things that he was saying. And I got really curious, why did he say that? And I would go through with this pink highlighter and I'd highlight the different questions and I'd start to pull apart these different frames. And it wasn't until much later that I actually studied NLP. I got a hold of some of these books like Sleight of Mouth, Persuasion Black Book, Socratic Selling, ones that we recommend. You don't have to, you're going to get enough here, but if you want to go deeper, that's where we got a lot of it. And again, it didn't clearly translate to sales. And so I pulled some of those concepts apart. I found those questions and we've created new frameworks to really make your sales process easier, quicker, and more effective. And so if you don't know me, you all should, and you all read my document. My name is Eli, and about 2 years ago, Mr. Sanchez here, who's also named Eli, just to be super confusing, he went through my sales course, and I was so impressed with what he did with it. And he's really structured, really organized, really keeps things intact. And so we're both going to be your guides here and really help make sure that you get it. And if you're feeling overwhelmed at any time, that's good. Because you know what happens when you're done being overwhelmed? You get it. And you get it at an unconscious level. So just like going to the gym, pushing beyond your capacity is what makes you stronger. And so we want to invite you to lean into your edge, to try some of these on. So they're not just conceptual ideas that you can regurgitate. So they become a part of how you communicate naturally. And in your life, you're going to have lots of opportunities, not just on sales calls, whether it's, again, getting first class bump on an airplane, whether it's connecting to your barista, where they remember your name and get your order right perfectly every time you walk in. We're going to make sure that your communication on your sales calls, on your videos, on Facebook, wherever you're at finding clients, that you're seen as different. You've got a unique selling proposition that you all have. You're going to clearly identify that and communicate it more powerfully than you ever have, so people want to do business with you. So without any further ado, Mr. Sanchez, why don't you introduce yourself and kind of kick this off?
Sure. And I won't bore you guys too long, but I think most of you know who I am. I've created 6 businesses. They've all done 7 or 8 figures. And a lot of the reason why is because of sales. I fell in love with sales. And Eli actually was the first time I heard of NLP. The fun thing is I can almost guarantee 99% of you are actually probably doing NLP, whether you realize it or not. So NLP is just they put names to a lot of these powerful, effective techniques. And so you're probably already doing a lot of them, but now we're just going to teach you the names of a lot of these things. And if you have names to things, it's like a framework. You can call upon it faster. So we're going to teach you a structure. Just so you know, there's always first step is just become aware. Some of you already have some experience, so you are calling out some of the techniques or noticing the techniques Eli just used on you, and some of us aren't aware of it. So step 1 is awareness, and then step 2 is implementation, right? So what we have planned for you guys first is just we're going to teach you kind of what NLP is, the framework of a normal sales call, not NLP, just the framework of normal sales calls, like what the template looks like. And then once we have that foundation, step 2, we're going to go into all the different techniques. So again, just to kind of start with, to make it really easy, first, we're going to go into like what NLP is, the framework, meaning like what are the 7 stages of a normal sales call, and then just some principles around NLP. That's stage 1. Stage 2, we're going to teach you all these techniques and how to implement them. And then over the next 8 weeks, stage 3 is really the advanced mastery, where we're actually going to show you live calls where someone tells me that's too expensive, doesn't make sense. And then about 90 seconds later, they're like, sounds great. I'm so excited. Let's do this. And it's like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
And if I just play that video for you now, it probably wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, as we explore this and go deeper, we have actual, like 90-second, 2-minute segments of bits where Eli and myself are overcoming objections. And we're going to show you specifically how we were able to unconsciously put a thought in somebody's head. So we were going to unpack, as we get into the mastery, confusion patterns. How do you make people more compliant, more suggestible? And so a lot of it will be your perceptions, but really knowing what to look for. And there's so much to remember that you can't consciously. And so we're going to make sure that as you're ingraining some of this, you're already aware that you're already doing some of this naturally. And we're just going to highlight, shine the light of awareness on what you're doing effectively. And as you become more clear, you'll be able to use it at your conscious will, your unconscious will, because the 2 of the main skills that we're going to really go into here, sensory acuity and behavioral flexibility. Acute sensitivity to what's actually happening in this communication, and behavioral flexibility. And the person who's most flexible knows their outcome, is clear in where they're going, and has more flexibility in getting there, will always win in the end. And so that's going to be you. I love asking this question, and put this in the chat. What's the first thing you do when you get a dog? What's the first thing you do when you get a dog? Name it. Everybody said name it. The second thing you do is you train it to come when you call. And so there are aspects of your communication that you're doing effectively. And so what we've done for all effective communication is we've labeled and named these so you can call them forth at your conscious will, your unconscious will, so they happen unconsciously and automatically. And so that's going to be the process you're going through. And again, you're already doing some of this. And just for a little brief history, what NLP was based on was the fact that Richard Bandler and John Grinder saw that there were certain therapists who got better results than everybody else. In sales, there are certain people who get better results than everybody else. And so it wasn't just what they were saying, their script, it was their internal frames, pictures in their own mind, their ability to communicate and put a picture in somebody else's mind. So there was a mental syntax, there was a belief system, there was certain strategies, yes, but they found those distinct strategies from the top performers, and they created frameworks and they labeled them so that people like you and I could then apply those into our own life. And so we've taken those, we've advanced it and put it just in a sales context so you can fully get it. Make sense?
I'm getting it.
You're getting it. You're getting it. So I am going to just kind of break down so we're fully on the same page with what is NLP. I'm going to break this down and show you how we've adapted a bit. And this will be the only boring part. And then everything else from there is really going to go into tactical tools. But just to make sure we're all on the same page, what is NLP? So neuro-linguistic programming, means the nervous system. And so a lot of times when we communicate with somebody, we stay on a very mental level, but people have these neuro associations and they could be tight, they could be tense. So we want to understand that neuro is the nervous system, the mind, through which our experience is processed through the 5 senses. Right now, you're seeing me, you're hearing me. If you've got your microphone or your speaker on loud, maybe you're even feeling me. And so there's these senses that are coming to you, that you're processing and you're making it mean something. Also my tonality, if I'm strong, if I'll kind of stutter a little bit. If I begin to slow down or I emphasize something, it means something different in your nervous system. And all of you have past associations to what that means based on your past references. When somebody communicates like a CEO, or if they're all over the place, you have associations to how you're perceiving me right now in your nervous system. So it's beyond your consciousness. Next part, linguistic, language. Language and other nonverbal communication systems through which our neural representations are coded, ordered, and given meaning. This could be pictures, sounds, feelings, taste, smells, your self-talk. So this is the language of communication. And you've heard this before, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so we want to be able to create a space for people to put pictures inside of their mind, to have thoughts.
Yes.
Because what's more important than what's coming out of my mouth are the images that's going into yours, into your head. And so then the third part is programming. Programming is the ability to discover and utilize the programs that we run, our communication to ourselves and our neurological systems to achieve our specific and desired outcomes. So this body of work was enhanced quite a bit by Tony years ago. He refers to it as NAC, which means nervous system again, associative conditioning. And this is built upon the presupposition that we can't necessarily program somebody like a computer, but we can condition their associations in a moment or across time by changing what we focus on. And we do that with questions or stories. We're going to show you that in metaphors. We can change the meaning that we attach to what somebody's focused on and what our current physiology is like. So this is the triad, and we're going to unpack that in the next session, really go deep into it. So regardless, we are learning how to use language of the mind, which isn't just words. We're learning how to use the language of the mind to help others get their desired outcome. That's very important. We are learning to help use the language of the mind to help others get their desired outcome. As we do this effectively, you will notice that your prospects, maybe even yourself, have past negative references to deal with, past negative associations. They have a model of the world that does not support their outcome. They might have an identity that is not in alignment with someone who gets their desired outcome or state. This, if it's too vague or specific about what they want, they might have beliefs about you, your service, that do not support the interaction. These distinctions that are inside of their mind or their associations might keep them stuck. In other words, in an unresourceful state. And so we want to make sure that we're understanding we're not selling products or services so much. People buy states. And so we want to put them in a state. So we're using our communication to put them in a state, their focus, the meaning, how they feel, what's happening inside of their body, to create a stronger association to the negative circumstances of doing nothing, the positive outcome of achieving their desired state through you being their guide. So with the tools you're going to learn here, you will understand the disconnect and be able to shift their focus, frame a new meaning of the conversation into a successful and more resourceful one. We need to first understand that the presentations you make are then represented to the prospect inside of his or her own mind. So right now I'm speaking to you, and every single one of you are representing a different presentation of what I'm saying to yourself. So there's what I'm saying right now, I'm presenting to you, and then you have a representation, a representation of this presentation inside of your mind. And so I know that even though there's one presentation happening here, with everybody who's going to watch this, there's going to be like 100 different re-representations. So I'll create some strong frames to make sure that we're all in alignment. But I first respect each one of your model of the world. And so I'm not here to make your model of the world wrong. I know that as you're listening to me, you have past references to NLP, to speaking, to yourself. You have some negative associations to sales maybe. And so you're representing all of this to yourself. So you've heard this before, if you've studied NLP, that the map is not the territory. which means that the internal representations that we make about the outside event or presentation are not necessarily the event in and of itself. So what we see, like you've heard this before, that there was a car accident, 20 people saw it, and there was 20 different representations of what actually happened. So we all do this. Your prospects do it, you do it, every one of us do it. I do it as well. So we use our past references, our model of the world, our belief systems, and our own mental syntax, where we have deleted, generalized, and distorted information to fit into our past references. So in your sales conversations, in your coaching sessions, you're going to find, based on the language patterns that we teach you, where people have mental strategies set up that are out of alignment with their desired state. So we're going to unpack a lot here with different mental models. So throughout this program, we will address head-on the limiting associations that you might have about sales, money, value, prospecting, the words yes, the words no, or any objection you might have, like I got to think about it, I don't have time. So we want to make sure that you have a positive association to hearing all of that, because those words might trigger some meaning in you. Yes could mean approval. You don't want that. No might mean you feel rejected, or I think about it. These might cause a unconscious emotional response in you. And so we're going to work on changing those associations, and you're going to get this at such a deep level. It's going to trigger, if anything in you, a feeling of genuine curiosity. And you're going to be like, wow, now I get to have some fun. And so see all communication for what it is. It's just somebody's strategy that they went through a mental syntax to get there. And as we pull apart the belief and the structure, you're going to play with different aspects of their internal representation and see where you can pull them back into alignment. So for now, know this: any information, including this training, will be being run through your internal representation. We make an internal representation through this internal processing, and you're doing it automatically. We all do it automatically. We all have the perfect internal representation already to keep us in the same direction we are currently in. Same with your prospects. You need to believe that it is moral and good to shift this for people and be seeking to constantly and effectively do this for yourself. When we combine the internal representation inside the prospect and ourselves, along with somebody's physiology, we produce a state. Heaven if they do, hell if they don't. Understand that everything we do as humans is unconsciously designed to move us towards pleasure and away from pain. So if somebody says they got to think about it or they say no, that means they associate more pain to saying yes than not saying yes. So super basic, but that's what's happening. We want to be state inducers. Like you're an influencer, you're inducing states in people. That's who you are. That's the outcome here. Because what drives all action, what precedes all action, are thoughts and feelings or states. So we want to be state inducers and make changes throughout our communication that put others in what we're going to refer to as the buying state. So if you were to interview all of your past clients or anybody in your life that said yes to you, you're going to find there are certain patterns that they went through and associating value to you, them, the process, the possibility, the circumstances of staying where they were. So you're going to notice patterns. State refers to the emotional state of the individual. They could be in a stuck state, an apprehensive state, a motivated state, an excited state. We produce states in others and ourselves through our sensory input. This is visual, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, gustatory. For the purpose of this program, there's a lot of these modalities and these sensory input mechanisms that people go into. A lot of it doesn't really relate to the sales context. I think a lot of it's lost if you've read a lot of NLP books. So we're mainly going to focus here on changing what people focus on with what they see, what they hear, and what they feel. As information comes to us through our senses, this is input. When you're seeing me right now, you're listening to me, this is input. And this input is automatically filtered, and we process this information through our internal processing, like through our model of the world. You have many filters we're going to talk about. as we process the information, we again delete, generalize, and distort information that comes in according to the elements that filter our perceptions in the moment. So we need to make sure that your state is even stronger as we pull apart the state of the prospects and work with their filtering system. So they have certain meanings, certain associations to your product, to your service, to possibility, to necessity. So we're going to begin unpacking a lot of that. And so I am going to, before we end here, I am going to cover, to make sure we're on the same page, the presuppositions of NLP. So does everybody here know what a presupposition is? Just to make sure that we're on the same page with that. Kind of get it? No, yes. An assumption, an assumed belief. Yep. That's it. So that's a great term for it, assuming a belief. So, as you're learning this, you're going to find that you become a lot more curious when you interact with people. So I'm presupposing that you're going to learn this. So some of these hidden presuppositions we just buy into. And so there's certain presuppositions of NLP that you'll want to fully understand, that as you ingrain these principles, and I'll make sure that I post them in the group just so you have them. I'm going to read through them so you're not just looking at words. But before I get into that, I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Sanchez to make sure that we're taking these concepts and putting them into a sales framework. And so if you've studied any, NLP out there already, it has a therapeutic basic, not sales basis. And so we want to make sure that we're constantly realigning you. And as we get more advanced, you'll see how you can use it for anything. But for now, we want to make sure that you're specifically thinking in an influence and sales context.
That's really good. I appreciate, thank you, Eli. And then also the people in the comments who are writing some of these techniques as Eli is doing them. Some of us are already aware of it, right? As you're learning, some of you might have already realized. So it's kind of like walking through what the brain is thinking. Really cool stuff, but I want to just make sure we recap a couple of powerful things Eli mentioned. It has to be a moral obligation, right? Like you're helping someone. So don't sell something that you don't feel can help someone. I think we all know that already, but just don't do it. Don't sell something unless you're going to help someone, because we're going to show you some stuff that makes it really hard for people to not have a logical or emotional objection. Their brain will not find a good reason not to sign up if you use this correctly. So only sell to someone if you really feel like your product can help them. Like, I think we're past that point, but just make sure you got to say that, right? So a lot of you guys who have done our previous sales know I did 101 recorded calls. I closed 91 of them. And a lot of people, when we would go in like our private training and you'd watch some of those calls, they would say, I wish my prospects were that easy. But they're not that they're easy prospects, but I'm setting certain frames and saying certain things and understanding the type of personality that I'm dealing with, that I'm actually qualifying them on the call. They're becoming the person that would sign up. Mm-hmm. And I only use this if you feel like you could help them, right? So Eli used that word moral, very important. The next thing that I think Eli mentioned, which is really important to remember, is resourceful state. He's kept mentioning state. You're changing people's state. Drop that in the chat, resourceful state. Remember that. People are not going to sign up if they're in the wrong state. And so after we go through the framework, because today's going to be foundational stuff, we'll talk to you guys about what that means. Because I've been on calls where the moment I get on the call, I go, that person that's in front of me right now will not sign up. So I have to change their state. And we're going to talk about that. Really important. You got to be able to change people's state. And then just a quick little tip, every single sales call that I'm on, before I kind of understand the advanced stuff, which is personality selling, I can't wait to show you guys that. Before I figure out what type of personality I'm dealing with, I still always try to help people feel three ways. I want people to always feel intelligent, reasonable, and helpful. We're going to spend a lot of time over the next 8 weeks going over that, but those are resourceful states. Intelligent, reasonable, and helpful. Intelligent meaning they feel like they can collect information in a good way. Reasonable means they make good decisions based off the information they have. And helpful means to some degree, they're not just doing things for themselves. They're not selfish. They're giving back. They're contributing to the world over time, we're going to teach you there's levels, logical levels, giving people a purpose. People are way more likely to do something if they're part of a bigger purpose or a mission, or their identity fits in this larger piece of this bigger world. And so we'll show you exactly how we do that. But just as a quick foundational tip, intelligent, reasonable, and helpful. If they feel those three things about themselves, they're way more likely to sign up. So I'm going to be showing you guys different things that I do throughout the call to guide them there, which is especially important if they give you objections. You just kind of subtly or gently show them how intelligent, reasonable, and helpful people make decisions. And then that person, the prospect's going to make a decision. You guys have heard this before, but like the strongest thing in the entire human decision-making process is people's need to stay consistent with who they believe they are.
Yeah.
So if you can kind of help them identify what their identity is, they're going to take their behaviors based off of who they are.
Yeah, what Eli's alluding to too, we have labels that we attach to people. And when we associate a positive label, like I do this all the time, I might talk to a customer service person and say, oh, you're so helpful. I really appreciate it. And so they want to keep that positive label. So I'm creating context for them. I'm like, wow, I can tell. I know that you probably deal with such jerks out there. I got to say right away, really appreciate you. I can tell just by the tone of your voice, you really care. This is going to help me so much. I can tell you're a really helpful person. So I'm different. I'm appreciating them. I label them helpful. And I guarantee just labeling them helpful will help you get your way at the end, because they don't want to be not helpful. And so there's labels that I'll even say, wow, I can tell like you really take this seriously, to somebody on a call, and they'll want to stay in alignment with that.
Yep.
And so we have actual video examples that will show you of us doing this, and people follow suit.
It seems subtle too. What Eli just said, it seems so
It should
small.
be subtle.
It should be
Yeah.
subtle. Technique.
Yeah, I always tell people there's not one magic phrase that you say like abracadabra and people just do whatever you want. It's like these little nuances. It's subtle shifts.
Mhm.
And with you really understanding the structure of language and what we're actually looking for on the call, you're not looking for excited agreement. You're looking for distinctions where you shift people's beliefs, and you come from the presupposition that what motivates people is what already motivates them. So you're looking for that driver, and they might have some incongruent beliefs or patterns or strategies that have them stuck. So we're unpacking that throughout the communication, and some of that will be how they identify themselves. And so we're creating that context for who they are, and we're labeling them in a way that makes them a buyer. When I would speak at events, I'd say, wow, so excited you guys are here. By you being here, it means that you're an action taker, you're a decision maker, you're the kind of person who's committed to make some short-term sacrifices so you can get long-term gains. So I'm basically labeling them a buyer. You're a decision maker, you're an action taker. I love talking to people like you because you guys get it. You're different than those people out there. And so I'm labeling them in a way and creating a frame, and I'm acknowledging them. And so you're gonna see the shifts in this throughout. We've got lots of tactical examples, but not to overwhelm you. We just want you to understand what's happening inside of somebody's mind.
And one of the days we'll go over like the 5 most important frames that you need, and then the exact words that we use to do it. And so you'll get to all that. There's a lot of stuff that we have planned, and we are giving you a lot of bonus stuff as well. So it won't just be the NLP stuff. We're going to show you some metaphor selling. We're going to show you some story selling. Eli just showed you some tips on selling one-to-many. So there'll be that. Some more of the body language stuff, which is really fun to see. And then my favorite, which is the personality selling. I touched on that a second ago. But when you know the type of person in front of you, you also know what some of how they're trying to be seen, so you can guide them. You also know what their fears are, so you can vilify the behavior to prevent it. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that we have it all planned out. But before we can go into that, you have to at least know the framework that we're working on. So I want to go over first, like just the stages of a sell with you guys. And we're talking about one call closes. Yes, some of you have more complex selling systems and it's multiple call. but we're just going to talk just to make everyone on the same page. Like, here are the 7 steps of a normal sales flow. You might be asking, what if it changes? What if they jump ahead? Yes, sometimes sales jump around, but for organization, it's best for everyone to be on the same page. So I'm going to show you guys the 7 steps of the framework. If you're taking notes, this could be helpful. You might want to take notes on some of this. So first, let's go into the framework. High level, I'm just going to list it out for you guys. First, you start with an intro. Second thing, figure out their problem. Third stage, their solution. So intro, then problem, then solution. And like every sales book you'll ever read, or you can look at Tony Robbins teaching stuff from the 1980s, you have to have some consequence of inaction, the cost of inaction. You have to have that. So intro, problem, solution. Step 4, cost of inaction. Step 5, present your product, meaning presenting your pillars, presenting how your product is a path to their future. And that's really important, the future. The biggest problem Eli and I see is so many times people are over focused on the features, not the future. You're selling a better future. You're selling them a ticket to a better future. And I see some body language and people sit up a little bit straight when that happens. So that must resonate with you guys. It's really important. Oh, I see some hand movements. This is good. So now we got the presentation of the pillars. So intro, number 1, problem, number 2, 3 is the solution. 4th is consequence. And we're going to break this down in detail in a moment. Then you go into presentation of the pillars. After that, it's kind of a process check, a confirmation to make sure there's no questions. We want to typically handle the questions now to make sure everything's clear. You could pre-handle anything if there's anything that needs to be fixed, and then you close them. Oftentimes there's 0 objections if you pre-handle all of them correctly. But in the closed stage, sometimes there's objections. We'll show you guys how to handle it. So that's kind of the flow that we'll talk about. Any questions on that? Anyone need a repeat? I think Sarah just dropped it in the chat. I love you. Thank you for that. But is that any questions on that? If there's a question, raise your hand. All right, that sounds good. Pretty clear, at least on the over. It's again, that's pretty high level stuff. And again, it's a little bit more of the boring stuff, but 70% of the sale is typically lost because there's just people are missing these key elements. So that's really important. Let's go a little bit deeper just into a couple major points. But before that, Llewellyn, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. It was just interesting more than anything else that I consider goals such an important part, obviously, the flow of this. And if I've read it right, you combine this with the product, you know, how they future place it. Could I get a comment around that? Why goals you don't consider a separate like stage?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll go through each one in order. And so I will handle that. The first part, let's go into the problem, because that's really the most important like starting point. If the problem is big enough, people are going to sign up. And so there's 4 things you guys will want to remember around the problem. Again, this is a foundational day. And so at the end of today, I'll show you guys a sample script. You know exactly what it is, but the words don't matter as much as understanding why it works. So first is the problem. If you want to make sure someone has a very clear problem, you guys already know this, you got to figure out the duration of the problem. In other words, how long has that problem been there? Second thing, you have to figure out where that problem is affecting them. In other words, where is that showing up? So we call that the impact. There's 4 stages to a problem: the duration, the impact. Next thing is the root of the problem.
The cause, yeah. What's causing it?
Cause of the problem, the root of the problem. We won't have time to go into this today, but I love figuring out the root of a problem because you figure out the type of person you're dealing with. They're going to either blame things on internal factors or external factors. And that gives you incredible data of how the rest of the call should go.
Yep. Yeah. And when anybody's buying something, we want to find the problem. They have to have a problem and they need to be emotionally connected to the problem. An undisturbed prospect will not buy. So we have to have a problem before we present the solution. When we go into goals and all that, based on how experienced the buyer is, it might change. If you have a really newbie market, you ask them, hey, what seems to be the challenge? It might be like, I don't know. sometimes they're not being difficult. They're starting out. So you want to get the principles first, and then we're going to embellish on them and go deeper. But really digging into the root cause is key. And I'll bring up a couple examples from Tony Robbins, because I'm obviously a huge fan. He introduces his 7 forces of business mastery when they're going to sell it, and they detail them. But he says the number one chokehold on any business is the psychology of the business owner. And he expands on it and he beats it to death. He's like, you can get the best processes, but what separates you is the psychology of the business owner. So he gets everybody to buy in the frame that your psychology is effed up. And it just so happens he's the best in the world at selling psychology. So he's creating a frame. If I was selling against Tony on stage, I'd say, you know what, people talk about all this mindset stuff. You know what's good for your mindset? Having the right strategies and process, having the right automation so you don't have to think about it. If you're using all of your mindset all day, that takes a lot of mental energy. The last thing you need is more footwork on your mindset. You guys are already good enough. You want to be successful. You need what? You need the right strategies. And so I'm reframing. So if you're selling a mindset program like Tony is, you can model that. But if you're selling against Tony, you want to create a different association. So we'll go deeper into it and give you examples, but I'm clear in the communication when I'm digging into the problem of where they might already be going in a direction that is not in alignment with what we want. And so the way that Tony does it, he teaches some things, but we can do it also changing the frame by asking different questions. And so that's going to be really looking at what they see to be the root problem, the root cause. So it's really important.
So important. And Eli said something there he said
You can do
that
both, yes.
an undisturbed prospect will not buy, which is kind of tough because I think Eli's a really nice person. I'm a really nice person. We don't want to make people feel pain, but they will say, this sounds great. I really like you. I love your product. I'm going to think about it. If there's not enough pain associated with their current state. And so you have to create that awareness. I'm not saying you have to be mean to them. I'm not saying you have to slap them around, but you have to create that awareness. And so an undisturbed prospect will not buy. They will say, let me think about it. So you have to get that. And you have to do it in a gentle way. If they feel like they're being attacked by you, psychology calls that reactance. They're going to put their hands up and they're going to defend themselves. And they're going to have a big filter from the rest of the things you're going to say throughout the call. So you have to say it in a way where they're realizing their problem's bigger than they realized initially. You have to say, we'll show you exactly the techniques later. So let's go into those 4 stages of the problem. We talked about they're figuring out how long the problem's been there, the duration, how's that showing up in their life and where that's affecting them. That's the impact. Eli just went into the cause or the root of the problem. And the 4th part, and this is the thing most people forget about, is you have to help them feel the problem. And so one of the best ways is to use either a trigger moment or some epiphany, the moment they realized that this might be something that they need to work on. How do you do that? They have to visualize it. And so if you can pull out a memory, instead of them just saying, yeah, I got to get more leads, or I got to, hit Q2 goals, or I got to, I want to get a new house, or I got whatever you're selling, doesn't matter. I got to lose weight. That's a number on the scale. It doesn't mean enough. I got to lose weight. But if you help them visualize a memory, the way the brain works is any memory, there's an emotion attached to it. Any memory, there's an emotion attached to it. Do people make decisions based off of logic or emotion?
Emotion.
Emotion. We already know that. And so you have to really get them to visualize how it's showing up. And most people forget that. They think just because the person said, I went to the doctors and he said I got to lose weight. That doesn't mean enough. You have to get them to actually feel that moment again. And so there's a really cool way that you can do that. Once they are there, oftentimes that's big enough alone for people to sign up. What's interesting, Eli made a post in the Facebook group just recently and said, what are you guys excited about? And the powerful Mr. Eric Auger said he really is excited about getting people to level 3, which means transformational level. Because we talk about there's 3 levels of sales. Level 1 is surface level. Level 2, people will buy, action level. But it really doesn't change their life. They won't remember the conversation the rest of their life. You want to have a level 3 conversation, transformational level. And you really can't get there unless you're willing to have those deeper conversations, those trigger moments, those epiphanies. So we'll show you exactly how. But though that really, if you do a great job on the problem, people are already going to sign up. And then you do a great job on their solution, they're definitely going to sign up. And then you remind them of what happens if they don't sign up, the consequence of inaction, they're definitely going to sign up. And then you present a product to them that shows how your product is the ticket to the person they want to be. They're absolutely going to sign up. So each of these stages, if you're just good at one of the stages, you'll probably start closing higher. But if we help you with each of these 7 stages, you will be able to close head and shoulders above the competition. That's the goal. That's what we're working on. So now let's go into solution. The solution part is going to, of course, be different based off the product that you have. The good news is if you've done some market research, you have a little bit of an understanding of who your avatar is. So you already kind of know what a lot of their needs are, and you can guide them early in the call, plant seeds so that the solution is aligned with your product. But here's a couple crucial parts to your solution. High level, you got to get them to figure out what their goal is, right? If they don't have a true goal, you can't guide them there. So Eli Wild will mention gap, the gap, right? People buy on the bigger the gap is. And so current location is where they're at. Desired destination is where they want to go. The farther they are from where they want to go, the more likely they're going to sign up. So step 1, figure out what their goal is. And then step 2, make it bigger.
Okay.
And the third part, the part that most people make the mistake on, is make it less about the goal and more about the person, their identity, who they will be. And we'll show you how to do that. But an example of that, just to give you an idea, some people are talking about things they want to do, not who they will be, right? Yeah, I want to bring in more money, I could hire a team. I want to get more leads so I can hit my revenue goals, or whatever it is. Doesn't matter what you're selling. It's going to be oftentimes that surface level stuff. And you could ask what we call double commitment questions. When you say you want to bring in more money, is that to kind of scale a team, or is that so you can kind of buy back your time a little bit more? Yeah, I'd say both. Okay, when you say you want to buy back your time, like what type of things would you do? Boom. I'm going to travel more. I can focus on my passions more. I can spend more time with the family. And then you're just a couple questions away, which we'll go over throughout the week. So you're just a couple questions away to now selling them to be a better father, or selling them to be a better leader, or selling her to be a better mother, or a better sister, or whatever that bigger thing is. You're typically, when we do call reviews, 2 or 3 questions away. You're very close. And so we're going to show you all those soon. But that's what a true process is. It's a big gap. Gap selling. Drop it in the chat. Gap selling. The bigger the gap, the more likely they are to move forward today. Because you don't want people to say, this sounds great. I really enjoy this conversation, but I don't like to make decisions on the spot. The bigger the gap, the less likely you're to have that. Then we go into cost of inaction. Those are pretty structured on the ways you ask the questions. I'll show you guys the exact way I set it up so it's not too weird and too awkward. I'll show you guys my flow around cost of inaction. Present the pillars. When you present your product, and again, we're just foundational stuff, your product typically has to do 2 things. So when you're presenting your pillars should solve their pain and create a path to the future that they want. Your pillars should solve their pain and create a path to the future that they want. We'll go into exactly what that looks like. And one of the best parts about NLP is they talk about the structure of a belief. Your job is to present your product in a way there's a structure of a belief. Like if they have this pillar, then they'll get this result, which means they can get this future. We'll show you how to do that soon. If then means structure of a belief. So the way you present your product needs to be around that. From there, there could be some questions if there is lack of clarity early in the call. And at this point in the discovery stage, for those of you who are asking about objections, most of us already know you should be able to pre-handle objections. What are the most common objections? Drop one in the chat. What are the most common objections? Let's all participate here because you guys are going to see some similarities without even looking. Some of you are saying finances, some of you are saying spouse, or some of you are saying, let me think about it.
Yeah.
Spouse if could be business partner as well. Yep, I'm looking at the chat now. Exactly. That's the evil trifecta, right? Timing, finances, spouse. In other words, let me think about it. That's too expensive. Or let me talk to my wife. Let me talk to my business partner. So you want to pre-handle those in the discovery stage, and we'll show you how we do that. Cool. So that's kind of the big outline. The next steps after you present your product, you can do a process check, get them to say why they feel this could be a good solution for them. Again, get them to say why they feel it can be a good solution for them. You don't tell them why they should sign up with you. You get them to tell you why they think it's a good idea. We'll show you how to do that. Page 91 of Socratic Selling. Eli mentioned Socratic Selling earlier. Page 91 of Socratic Selling teaches that, by the way. It's just like, it's not if I were to show you, it's if you were to find. Not if
takes the focus off of you. When you say, hey, if I could show you a way, now they're like in a logically like kind of analyzing you. If I could show you a way how you could improve your sales, now you're like, okay, prove it. But
right.
if I say, if there was a way that you could have what you're wanting without having to do the thing you're not wanting, would you possibly be open to looking at that?
Mhm.
And then they're going to be more open to it. So it's a matter of controlling their focus. And, you know, we've got a lot that we're going to unpack here, but, you know, when I posted the Socratic Selling questions, and I'm going to post some content around nominalizations, unspecified verbs, so you can know when to communicate with contextual ambiguity, because they'll fill in the blank. It makes them slightly in a trance state, makes them slightly more suggestible when they've got images in their mind. So when I talk about sales or empowerment or understanding, those all mean different things to each one of you. And so it forces you to go inside and access resources of your references, and we can explore the meaning of what your product does for somebody. And so there'll be these different questions that we break down frames for. But for now, I just want you to understand that language is really powerful. And as we, you know, if you Google like the top 10 therapy-based questions or Socratic Selling questions, like the questions are there, and you can download like every objection handling script out there. But that's not going to do anything for you unless you understand why you're saying what you're saying and what you're looking for in the response. Then you'll know how to have this dialogue with somebody, not just a bunch of words back and forth. And so oftentimes when you do get those objections, there's something that was missed up ahead of time. We didn't meet their needs. They weren't associated to the problem, the impact of the problem, why the problem's a problem, the consequences of not changing the problem. And so we're understanding what to look for. And again, we're selling states and identities. And if you do that, people will be much more open to what you have. And we would, again, prevent those objections up ahead of time. Does it make sense, everybody?
That
And
alone is like the
yeah.
most important thing, what he just said. Like that could
Yeah.
be a one-sentence sales course. You just finished the course right there. Like
Yeah.
understand why you're asking what you're asking.
Yeah, it's and you're gonna notice things in my language. So even as I say, you're gonna notice, I'm telling you what to notice. I said, you know, the fact that you're here means that you guys are gonna get this at a different level. Really, it doesn't. That's called complex equivalence. Hey, the fact that you're here, it means this. So I'm creating a meaning. So there's subtle shifts, and we're going to break down all of this, just not to overwhelm you. I want you to recognize that I do this all the time. And there's 4 stages of learning, and you want to write these down. Most of you have heard these before. I believe they're from Maslow. The first stage in learning something is unconscious incompetence. Like you don't know how to do it, and you don't even know that you don't even know how to do it. The second stage of learning is conscious incompetence. You see somebody else do it and you're like, wow, I kind of get it, but I'm conscious that I don't know. And I'm conscious of some of these aspects or linguistic tools, but you're incompetent at it. It's fine. It's the stage. Third stage is conscious competence. Like you can do it, but you got to think about it. It's like when you were learning to tie your shoes, like you figured it out, but you had to like really focus on it. You know, driving a stick shift car, like you became conscious and you could do it, but you really had to think about it. The highest level of your being able to perform this is unconscious competence, where it just becomes automatic for you. And yes, there'll be scripts and questions, but my goal here isn't to get you good at memorizing scripts. But if you can understand these concepts and be willing to be playful and curious and fun and exploratory in all of your communication, it's amazing. You know, it's Eli was at we met up in Miami a couple of weeks ago, and he got like this he got upgraded to like a $2,000 a night room, you know, based on his interaction with the front office person or the front desk person. So everything is influence, and you'll be able to use this everywhere. Mm-hmm. And so just for time's sake, we're going to break down your homework now, and the presuppositions of NLP. I think they're so powerful. I've written them all out. So I'm going to create them on a separate document. And part of your homework will be to read the presuppositions of NLP. It's about respecting somebody's model of the world. It's about behavioral flexibility. These are the presuppositions that you need to buy into to really ingrain. They're going to change what you see your communication as, how you see yourself as a communicator, how you see these people as strategies and processes that have gotten them result. You're going to be able to really align with their identity by seeing what's behind it. And so these presuppositions are powerful. But for now, the first part of the homework, Mr. Sanchez, why don't you break that down, and I'll break down the second part.
100%. And one thing just right before I go into the homework, and I will share my screen in just a moment to show you a general visual flow of what that sales process will look like. I will post it in the group. So I will do that. But Eli said something earlier about it's almost our responsibility. If the goal is to help people, it's our responsibility to work on our ability to communicate that, right? And sales is just better communication. You guys have heard this before. It's not about what you say, it's about what they hear. In other words, it's not about your intention, it's about the reception, right? It's not about what you wanted, what you meant by that. It's about how it landed for them. So one of the most exciting things that I am hyped about showing you guys is you could say the same sentence to two different types of people and it won't land the same way. I'm sure you guys are aware of that, right? And so you have to understand the type of person you're working with. That's why the script doesn't matter as much as understanding why you're asking the question. The moment you understand why you're asking the question is the moment you can make it your own. It's the moment you can make those small shifts. So real quick, I'm going to share my screen just briefly. I will post this in the group. And one of the first things that I ask after I share my screen, here's just a general outline. Yes, you guys will get this. Don't feel like you have to memorize any of this. We start with an intro. We go into the pain and the problem, go into the goal or the outcome that they want. In other words, towards their solution, figure out consequence of them not signing up, transition into the presentation, how your product is a path to the future that they want, figure out if there's any lack of clarity, and then investment and close them. If there's any objections, you'll handle it. We talked about up here, the evil trifecta of objections, timing, finances, and spouse. That'll be handled up here naturally. We'll show you guys how to do that, but we'll post this. The homework that we have, the first step of the homework is I'd like you to look at these questions and just think, why are we asking some of these questions? And now this is a general specific question. We'll post a general one. This is more like fitness based, but we'll post the general version, but still think about why you're asking that. Like why? And for example, someone says, I want to get X. And you say, are you wanting to get X more for this or for that? Like, why would you ask that question? And just, I want you guys to write out your own notes, what you think is the reason for that. That alone is going to create a better muscle for you than any script that we give you, because we can give you the techniques and you might use it at the wrong time for the wrong type of person. That makes sense. Just put a hand up. Makes sense, guys, why we're showing that? So key. That alone, because we've taught tens of thousands of salespeople, that alone has been a mistake. If we jump in and show people, they go, hey, people are saying it's too expensive. And we try to teach you how to do that. It's not going to work for you guys. It'll work for some of you, and we'll get some amount of testimonials, but we want this to work for all of you guys. So you have to understand why this works. So that's the first part of the homework. Eli will explain the next part of the homework just in a moment. And then after, we'd like to hear some aha moments from you guys, things that stand out. And then from there, we can do some Q&A. Next part of the homework, Mr. Wild.
So you're going to hear me say this a lot. In order to understand how to influence somebody, we need to understand what already influences them. And so the best place to start is with yourself. And so this is the first exercise that I want to have you do, and really think about this. I want you to understand that people don't buy products, they buy states. So stop selling the features and start selling the future. We're creating that association. What people associate to things will determine their behavior. Find the emotional reasons, stir it up, and make it real. So here's your exercise. I want you to write down, I'm gonna post this in the group as well, but write down 3 purchases that you have made. The more recent they are, the better. Could be this course. How big was your want? What made you really want to buy? What was the emotion you attached to it? Did you go inside and what did you say to yourself inside of your own head? How did you justify this to yourself? Next, I want you to remember a time that you had a strong want, like you wanted something, but you did not buy. Remember 3 of those situations. Why did you not make those purchases? What were the feelings that you had? How did you justify it to yourself? What occurred for you? What did you see? What did you feel? What did you say to yourself? What did somebody else say to you? Like, what created that process? And now, understanding what you now know, just at a conceptual level, and after you go through some of the questions, I want you to think about this. Take the last question from above. Why did you not buy? You had a want, but you didn't buy. Now become a person of influence, a true salesperson, a master. See yourself as that. What could the salesperson or the marketer have done to push you over the edge to buy? How could they have attached more emotion to it for you? What would had to have happened or occurred inside of your mind that somebody else could have triggered or asked you a question about that would have gotten you to a yes? So always start with yourself. With all of this, the best person to understand, as you want to understand other people, is understanding yourself. And you'll find that just this alone and these presuppositions are going to make you more compassionate, more sincere, more connected, more understanding, and less reactive to, I got to think about it, because that has no meaning except for the meaning that you give it. A bonus part of the homework is this, and I'll summarize this briefly. I really want you to think about this for the course. If you're texting somebody and they don't, and this could be a spouse or a boyfriend, girlfriend, or you were broken up with, when somebody doesn't call you back or somebody says no to you, what do you make that mean for you? Do you make it mean something negative about people, about yourself? Do you belittle yourself? And so it used to be something like in the sales process, and Chet Holmes said this, that you would get, it was like 7 no's before you got a yes. We're going to make that process a lot easier, but make no doubt about it. Doesn't matter if you're Tony Robbins or Oprah, whoever, not everybody's going to say yes. And sometimes there's going to be about 10, 20% of people that just say yes right away. There's going to be about maybe 10% of people that it would just take forever to get them. But there's about 80% of people in the middle that could go either way. A big determinant of you getting that 80% of people that are kind of, have some wiggle room will be your associations to standing with them in their resistance, being resourceful. And you can get all the linguistic tools and memorize all the language patterns. But what's going to make you more resourceful is you being in a resourceful state, associating a positive meaning to that resistance. So when you get any resistance, this is time to play. This is time to get curious. This is time to dig in. this is time to have some fun. And so if you just change your state in that moment, you'll become more resourceful and you won't have to think, what do I got to say? What, all that, it'll just come to you naturally if you're in the right state. And I know you've all done this before. And so get really clear when you get any rejection or a no, or somebody says something, they might even say something rude to you that has nothing to do with you. So we want you to look at some of your associations around certain words, no or yes. It has no meaning except for the meaning that you give it. And so you want to make sure it's a meaning that empowers you.
Really, really good stuff. We will go into some aha moments. Just one quick thing that a coach told me before, and it's really helpful. And I think it's might be helpful for someone. When you feel like you have homework, you don't want to do it, right? But this is like just a few questions, a few exercises that can literally not just change your income, but it can change the people you're helping. You'll help more people. You'll have a better effect on the world if you're more impactful, if you're more effective. So one of the things that a coach told us one time is you didn't hire the coach to tell you what you already knew. You hired the coach for them to tell you what they know. And Eli wants you to do some of these questions for a reason. Like, it will change your perspective on some of this. Even if it seems simple, it's really foundational for the rest of the 8 weeks. We have a lot planned, but we know that this is the foundation you need to have the best chances for success. So it might not feel like you need to do this, but if you do this, you'll have a higher chance to help more people. I promise you. So a lot of stuff today, a lot of principles. We covered a lot. Any aha moments or things that stand out or things that are exciting, anything that you guys feel would be good to cover?
Yeah. And I'll just add this. The issue isn't so much doing the homework or not doing the homework. That's something you do. But really what this first session is about is making sure you're a person who's committed to mastery. And if you're committed to mastery, which if you hear, I'm going to assume that you are, who here is committed to mastery? Who wants to master communication in a way that helps people? So really, this is about just another commitment, another layer, another opportunity for you to commit to mastery, but we're going deeper. And by the way, that was a pattern. The issue isn't this, it's that, and here's what it means. And I link the meaning to your identity. So you can go back over these videos. I'm doing it all the time. And there's certain language patterns that I use to reframe content and context, like I just did, that I'm going to break into formulas every single week. We'll have at least one, maybe two patterns that I break down, give you the formula, give you examples, and you will have the opportunity to make your own just as a bonus and have fun with this stuff. You'll see, like, I use them unconsciously now, and I use them unconsciously. And then as I started to train, I had to become more conscious of what I was doing unconsciously. And that's how we've created this. And I ferreted out all those exact frameworks, and that's what you're getting, but you have to commit to the process. And I know you will, because you're committed to mastery. Again, who's committed to mastery? Boom. I'm getting another agreement from you.
Oh, good. And even now, I was just speaking to you guys a moment ago, and I said, it's not just that you guys will make more money, but you'll be able to help more people. It assumes you're going to make more money. You're going to close more people. It happens really smoothly there, though, but you might not notice it right away, but you will soon. There might be something there too. Cool. So what are some exciting things, aha moments? There is, I will choose Eric first because he hit the reactions button. Hit the reaction button on the bottom, please, and then raise your hand and we can get some feedback. Mr. Eric Auger.
Hey, Eli. So yeah, the biggest aha moment was early on, actually, in the hour. And it's when you said, when I connect at a deep level, people see me in a whole new and different way. And it's true, because I ran that through some of my own experiences. And when you connect at a deep level, I go, and I suppose other people do too, from suspicion to connection. And that's far more important than any of the features or any of the products, any of the offer. There's got to be, we have to drive people from suspicion to connection before we can do anything else. So that was the big aha moments.
That is awesome.
That's awesome.
Connection. That's so awesome. Guys, again, in a moment, you guys can ask some questions and stuff, but we are all going to have a lot more fun if we encourage each other. So give Eric a round of applause for that awesome word. Connection is huge. Celeste, you are up.
Hello, Eli's and everybody. My biggest aha moment was the changing of the state for my clients, for my potential clients, because right now I'm so stuck in trying to get them to see what I know that they need. And the more I do that, the more I seem to, it actually doesn't seem to be moving the needle in any direction. So what I'm realizing now is I need to focus more on changing changing their state of mind so that they will automatically seek me out. So I don't have to work as hard. So that's my aha moment. So thank you for that.
We have a full
Yeah,
day
there's
on
4
that.
levels to that. Changing, like, master influencers first have the ability to shift and control their own state. Like, you're down, you ask yourself a different question, you break your own pattern and you shift your own state. And then you learn how to do it to somebody else. And then once you learn how to do it to somebody else in a moment, that's on a sales call, you learn how to do it in a certain context, maybe when they're at work. And then at the highest level, you do it where one interaction with you changes their state throughout a lifetime. That's when you've eliminated a thought, a fear, a phobia, or you've shifted somebody's identity based on the interaction with you. So the first level of this, the depth of it, is you being able to shift your own state. And then you learn how to master somebody else's state, shift somebody else's state in a moment.
So good. I wasn't planning on sharing this. Let me give you guys just a quick little thing, exactly what I did, Celeste, and I closed one for 30K that would not have signed up. The very
This is
beginning of
good.
the call, very beginning of the call. And this guy is comfortable with me sharing the story because he made like 200K in like 3 months after this. But at the time it was to close him for a 30K product. And he gets on the call. I'm like, Steve, how's it going? He's like, fucking hard day, man. It was rough. I'm like, uh-oh, this guy's not going to sign up. He goes, yeah, it was freaking rough. One of my clients disputed my charge, so I got a 10K chargeback. And then in my client only Facebook group, someone complained, and then other people started complaining. I get home and my girlfriend's pissed at me too. So all this stuff is stacking up. It's just one of these frustrating days, but you got to figure out how to turn it around to a beautiful way, I guess, but it's been rough. Is that guy going to sign up? No, right? That guy would not sign up, not in that state. But he said one little thing there. If you guys noticed it, he said the word, but you figure out how to turn it around into a beautiful way, I guess. You have to figure out how to turn it around into a beautiful way. He said that little thing. And so that's my ticket. And this is at the first 10 seconds of the call, but I'm like, and that's really what entrepreneurs do. They have that muscle. Most people don't know how to use it. But for you, Steve, how do you turn around those rough days in beautiful ways? And right away, he's like, well, first you just got to think about the truth. Like, it's not the end of the world. Tomorrow's a new day and life's about peaks and valleys. All of a sudden, he's my coach now. And he's become this more resourceful state. And you hear his voice change, his speech change. He's sitting up straighter. And he's now Coach Steve, teaching me how he handles when he has hard days. His state has changed. But I didn't stop there. He mentioned his girlfriend, that he's having problems with his girlfriend. I was like, I love that you have that perspective, and that shows why you're doing well. You being able to change your state like that. That shows why you're doing so well in this world. But you mentioned your girlfriend's pissed at you. That's a totally different game. How do you handle it when your girlfriend's upset with you? And then Steve said, well, Eli, here it is. Here's how to handle girlfriends. This is the key to relationship. He's coaching me on how to handle his girlfriend. Now that he's in this resourceful state, and he tells me exactly how he approaches problems with his girlfriend to get the outcome he wants. What is he doing without realizing it? He's pre-handling the objection, I need to talk to my spouse. He can no longer use that objection at the end of the call. And I handled it in the first 2 minutes because of his state. Just like Colette's asking, I'm changing his state. If that makes sense, just drop a 1 in the chat. Hopefully that you can kind of see that. Got some thumbs up and some. So that's the whole idea. You're changing people's states into a resourceful state that will buy. And then after you know the framework, I'm sure you guys are realizing you can jump around a little bit when you understand why you do what you do. And so that was a moment for me to jump in early. I pre-handled a bunch of his objections in the first 2 minutes. Cool. Hopefully that's helpful. Llewellyn, you are up.
Yeah, ready. Yeah, no, it's just on the back of what's already been said, actually. Considering the positive outcomes, marrying that with the objectives, that was huge. But I've realized that before we can even start, conditioning or program these guys, is the first person who actually gets conditioned is me, it turns out. I've come into this like presuming I'll be outfitted with how to affect the person outside of this call. But I'm the one who has to change first. And I'm
Yeah.
well on board for that. I can't wait.
That might be
Awesome.
the best comment of the day too. That's it. That's the whole game. If you change yourself, everything else will change, right? It's not just how you communicate with others, it's how you communicate with yourself. So awesome, Llewellyn. Guys, let's give Llewellyn and everyone a round of applause. That's awesome. That is the game. It's just hard to tell people I'm going to sell you on how to change yourself. And so that is really what we're doing here. We are helping you guys ideally become a better versions of yourself. Mr. Chris Flatten.
Well, how do you follow that? Jeez. No, I think my biggest aha today so far in my sales process right now, I'm only labeling them in the beginning, like, good job for being on this call and wanting to make a change.
Mhm.
But I think throughout the whole sales process for me, like labeling them in different areas and encouraging them on the action they're doing on the call is huge for me, because I'm only doing it one time and it looks like it needs to be done throughout the whole entire process, which is huge.
It's
Amazing.
It's key. Yeah, you have to, and you'll see a bunch of little frames that we do, and we'll teach you the exact ones that I use, but that's exactly the game. The more you kind of lock them in to help them realize they're a certain type of person, the better. It's frames. We're going to have a whole day just on that exact thing. So awesome, Chris. Giorgio, you're up.
Yeah, thank you. So I just want to say this has been awesome from the very beginning, like all the things and the presupposition that you guys are using to, I think, help us see who we are. And it really hit me when you said people make their decision based on who they think they are, and they need to be consistent with that. And helping, I manage a team of sales reps, so helping them understand that if they prejudge someone and they don't see that the person they're talking to can become the person that will make the decision to buy or to take action or to be in a more empowered state, that's huge. Like, it's the whole price of the program should be much higher just for what I heard when you guys said it. And again, thank you for making us feel, at least making me feel, the person that can be more influential and empowering for my team. So fantastic, and thank you.
Thank you, man.
Awesome.
I really
Thanks,
appreciate
brother.
that. That's so awesome. Yeah, that deserves a round of applause, guys. Give it to them. Let's keep it going. Come on. Come on. We rise by lifting others, guys. Come on. Here's one thing in the chat. If you don't know that quote, you should probably memorize that quote. The world will ask you who you are, and if you do not know, the world will tell you. That's the most beautiful, profound thing you could learn, but also the scariest thing. So many people don't know who they are. They don't have their own values, their own belief systems, their own identity, their own purpose dialed in. And because of that, people are very easy to shift. The good news is you can help them, if you're a good person, shift to a better version of themselves, and they'll sign up. The scary news is once you learn these techniques, if you had bad intentions, you could still get people to do the wrong thing. So definitely use this in a moral way. But that's the reason why we can shift people's identities so easily, is most people don't have it fully defined who they are. Sanada, you are up.
I'm trying to figure out how to unmute. All good. Hi, everyone. Hi, Eli. Great job, guys, really. So I'm at a point where a lot of my sales processes are unconscious, and I really appreciate the fact that you can look at frameworks and sort of why certain things work. So I just want to share something on a personal level. Like, my most rudimentary experience with NLP was during Tony Robbins, whichever seminar, one of 1,500 that I've attended, where it was really personal for me. I had a lot of sadness surrounding the passing of my father. So what I realized, the way I would envision my father was how he looked towards the end after 6 brain surgeries. And I would just start crying hysterically just at the mention or any kind of trigger event as it relates to a parent or a father. And the process that I went through was sort of closing my eyes, envisioning, like taking that picture from color to black and white, like taking it further into distance, making it smaller, and then envisioning my father at his younger days, or, you know, tragic days and making it brighter and closer and just really, really powerful. And that was one of the biggest aha moments for me as an adult and self-development, in that you can control how you feel and or remember things. And the way I see it, as it relates to sales process, I think it's extraordinarily powerful on so many different levels. I also saw it, how it works. But I think from the sales perspective, the one thing that I'm learning more and more is, like, when you're talking about the solution, and one of you said, you figure out what their goal is and then you make it bigger. So to me, what I heard is that process of, if you can do it for yourself, of envisioning things brighter and closer and bigger, whatever's important to you, how do you do that with your clients? And I've become very sensitive and in tune with people when they say, like, I hear you, or I see that, like trying to discern if they're more visual or auditory. And then I use that to make their goal bigger and understand like what's important to them. So just want to share that.
Amazing. Yeah, the submodalities, will go into that a bit. And, there's a lot of training out there that goes really deep into, if they say, yeah, I'm looking for this, well, I see, and then you go back, like, I see what you mean. And you use those same words. So you keep them in visual mode. There's some application to that for sure. And what we want to get in the habit for, and you'll see more examples of this, that it's kind of a cheat code for that. You get really used to, and I do it unconsciously now, using other people's adjectives. So the words they use to describe stuff, I describe stuff with the same words. And I find that I just do it. I think we all do that naturally sometimes. But if they're saying they want something that's really big, you say, I have this ostentatious thing. So, sometimes we have, the words just don't align. And so I find that I just use theirs. What you're asking though is, how do we get those people to create those images in their own mind? And so some of that will be they ask the questions, and it could be some double binds, all of that. We'll ask them to explain their experience. And as they do, it will force them to represent what they want to themselves. And you can create an association between this current home or what you have and guide them into it. So we'll have, because I know you sell homes. And so we'll go into that a bit, but a lot of times it's just asking the right questions, and they'll have to go inside and create those associations.
That's really good. And what Sonata is talking about, by the way, for those who aren't too familiar with NLP, there's different uses of NLP, and they typically go into like two buckets: the language part of it, and then the therapeutic side. There are some therapeutic side where you can, change the meaning of things and also change the weight of the memory. So you can manipulate things a little bit when you change the sounds or the size or the color or the direction. And she was talking about some of that more advanced stuff that over the weeks we will explain a little bit more onto. I think today is a foundational one. But we have a couple minutes left. I want to get to Marco, but thank you so much, Sonata, for sharing that. Really powerful. Marco, you're up.
Cool. Love what you guys are doing. And I just feel it's definitely perfect for what we're doing in sales. Well, obviously, right? So one main thing that I realized while you all were talking, I think what I was doing was I would get people who don't have an identity or don't have clear goals. And I think I was actually taking their goals into the future while leaving their identity stuck here.
Wow.
So it was actually a disconnect between the two. So I realized that while you all were talking, and that was my big aha moment.
Man, that's huge. Yeah, we will have a day on that, those logical levels and exactly how we connect it, because some of this is therapeutics. And so people use this in therapy, but they never translated it to sales. So Eli and I kind of created our own, or evolved it to our own way that we use it in sales, but it's covering exactly what you just covered, Marco. So
yeah, and a big part of that, to relate to what Marco said and Sonata, a big thing that's helped myself, and I know for Tony, change the way they interact with people will be some of these precepts of NLP. But just to be really clear and explicit, there's certain filters that you have where when somebody says something to you, there's a way you process it. And so 3 of the filters that I often, it comes to me unconsciously now when I see people, I often see people as like 5-year-old children. So if I see every one of you right now, like children, and just like that's your subconscious mind, and people are nasty or mean, or they're happy or they're giggly, it puts me in a playful state. Or sometimes I imagine people like it's their last day on earth and they're like 90 years old and they're on their deathbed. And it automatically, when I see them through this filter, like this person's going to die. And I automatically show up more compassionate. And another filter, it just comes to me a lot. I often see people as energy, and I can kind of see where they're blocked in their throat or their heart, and you'll feel something. And so I get a sense of it. Like I can see the internal child. I can see this person on their last day. I can see them as energy where they might be stuck or constricted. And I'm just, Einstein said everything's energy. And so I'm playing with this, and it's become subconscious for me. And I find, and Mother Teresa said it, that all communication is a loving response or a cry for help. And I do believe that there's something driving this person's behavior. And so I've conditioned myself to see past the mask and see that they've got past references where their needs weren't met, where they've got regret, or they're scared, or they're insecure, and they've got a wall up. And so I'll be playful with that energy and we'll shift them. And so it's a different way of seeing what's happening around you that's actually more real than sometimes our perceptions. And so that's going to shift throughout the program for you.
So exciting. So awesome. I know we went a little long today, guys. It's going to typically be closer to 60 minutes, maybe 75 minutes. We went 90 minutes today, but foundational day, it makes sense to go a little bit longer. I appreciate you all. Thank you guys so much for being here. We will drop the homework in the Facebook group, and we will drop the framework in the Facebook group. Thank you for the love in the chat. We love you guys. Thank you guys so much. We'll chat soon.